Hey everyone, Wanderbot here, and welcome back to Grav. So, I have a couple of things to talk about today. First and foremost, I'm going to talk about leveling, dungeons, and loot. Or dungeons, leveling, and loot. There we go, DLL. So first and foremost, see these things? These are slimes. Now, if you notice, there's like the super basic version of the slime, which is the small one, and then there's the bigger one, who you might or might not be able to read depending on like the speed I'm moving around at, but there's Frozen Sassafras the Rumbler, and then the Frozen Aggressive Slime. So, I am currently fighting Sassafras the Rumbler. I've already taken out one of the smaller ones. Now, normally this guy's kind of a pain in the ass if you're his level or lower, because he will attack you out in the woods and, you know, bother the crap out of you. And probably kill you if you're underleveled and undergeared. Now, the benefit for killing somebody like this is A, gives you a lot more experience. So if you have a group of people, one of which running around with one of these, you can keep him stunned nigh constantly, especially if it's a slightly upgraded version. Of course, the stun is not permanent, or it's not like a permanent stun lock, so it's not like an instant guaranteed victory, but it does help. And he didn't drop any, probably because he didn't have anything to give me, but if you notice, he gave me a lot of loot there. And the thing is, see all the nice equipment I'm running around in? I think you start with the blueprints for armor and stuff, but I have like a dinky looking wooden sword. You get that recipe from that boss monster. Anyway, I figured I'd do that just ahead of time because, well, I'm not sure when I'm going to run into any boss monsters. They're super common, but I figured I'd get that out of the way first. So anyway, if I'm going to be talking about dungeons, leveling, and loot, I've kind of covered dungeons a little bit, and I've covered loot a little bit. Well, no, I haven't really covered dungeons at all. So why am I out here gathering wood if I'm going into a dungeon? And the answer is, you'll see in a minute. Yesterday when I was doing my first impressions video, there was a little bit of a preview at what a dungeon looked like. And the thing is, dungeons don't have wood in them at all. But what they do have is copious quantities of every other resource. So if you go in there without any wood, you're quickly going to run into health issues, because the easiest way to get health in this game is by dancing in a campfire, which I didn't actually figure out until after the first impressions video was over. So what you want to do is you want to go in to the dungeon with a crazy amount of wood. Mainly because, well, if you die, you lose like half of your resources, give or take. And so losing half of a huge amount of wood is less impactful than half of 50, because then you can't make anything, including a campfire, to get back up to full health. So let's finish gathering this final tree and go check out a dungeon. Now, I will admit, and this is probably still going to be like the early beta alpha type issue, but there's a little bit more of a delay and a little bit more lag today. I think it's because more players are stressing their servers and whatnot. But, it's not that big of a deal. Now, as a quick holdover, and I'll talk about this one later, I'm actually riding around on the monocycle, which is the one of two vehicles available in the game thus far. The other one is a jetpack, which I have never seen anybody get, so I assume it's a much rarer item. But the monocycle is pretty cool. Problem with the monocycle, it uses wood like crazy, so that's the other reason why I advocate gathering as much wood as possible, because if you want to ride around in style, you're going to need to pretty much spend like 50% of your time mining wood and stuff. Now, one thing I noticed yesterday when I was going into the dungeon was, you know, there were multiple different types. Oh, okay, this is weird. And I think I actually started building a bridge in that video too, but I didn't have enough resources. Could be wrong about that one. But anyway, I had built a bridge across here. Now, I don't know, I don't think this is the same bridge. Let me actually double check. This might be the same bridge. But what I noticed is whenever they patch at the dungeon switches, yeah, this is my bridge. But the dungeon switches around. Oh, hello. That's a person. Oh, and there's a boss monster, so I guess they're a lot more common than I thought. But the dungeon switches around. I don't know if it was, like, specifically intended to do so, or if it, like, cycles on a daily basis. I'm not entirely sure. But one of the things I noticed, I got a screenshot of it, but I forgot to save it. But all of these dungeons are actually pre-generated and located underground, at least as far as I can tell, because earlier and I might actually be able to do it in this video if I can get to a certain spot. but, you know, resources plenty. But, let's dance, get a little bit of health back, not like I really need it. But if you stick your head through a wall, use, you know, clip camera to see what's going on, then you can pretty much see these dungeons are located directly below the rest of the world. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do it here. There's a specific area where it's really easy to do. Anyway, let's talk about dungeons for a bit. So, see these nodes on the walls? These are ore. I spent pretty much the entire first impressions video looking for these, and it was a pain in the butt. Never could. So, notice how there's like 6 of them in one very small location? That, I mean, this is pretty much the benefit of going into a dungeon. Dungeons have crazy amounts of resources. So, if you can get in here and you can get a good stake going, you can pretty much max out on everything except for wood and Element X. Element X, you have to build harvesters, but right over there is a harvester spot for Element X, so it's not like it's super rare either. You just have to consistently come back to your gathering nodes. And depending on the dungeon you're in, that could actually be a problem, because often these gathering nodes are swamped with enemies, and you'll have issues getting to and from. The benefit is the way the developers have worked it, and I think I just screwed up some the guy who passed me on the way out system is here, I'm gonna build a harvester so I can talk about that too. So if there are resource nodes in an area, enemies will respawn. And it looks like they still will respawn, but like intermittently. And it depends on the dungeon, but it's designed so enemies are not supposed to spawn unless there is a bunch of resources in the area. So I was doing a dungeon last night, and pretty much cleared the entire way out up until the point where I was too low of a level to fight. At which point, you know, I could run between all of the nodes. However, careful, if you're taking too long to clear out the nodes in a dungeon, you'll get mobbed purely because of respawns. And if you want to be like super clever about it, you can use oh, okay. No, I am actually doing a fair amount of damage to this guy. I was concerned for a second. I've got an ice sword, and I think ice does less damage to these slimes. But so enemies were respawning on me, and it was causing me a huge amount of trouble. Now let's just go back to that guy's fire, seeing as, you know, no reason why not to. Actually, I'm going deeper. Not the end of the world either. But, so, if you can't clear a dungeon within an hour, watch your ass, because they're probably going to be coming back for you, and it's going to be a problem. I guess I left my harvester there for anybody to use, but I don't really care. Didn't cost me that many resources to build. But it looks like people have largely cleared this out. Oh, is that? Yeah, that's what we want if we want to take a look at the outside of the dungeon. And here's more ore, which we really don't need. I've got like 554. I spend a fair amount of it building the monocycle. It's really expensive. Luckily, it only uses like the most base resources. You don't have to worry about the like really hard to get stuff, but it's still a problem. Anyway, what I wanted to do is show off where we are. So if you notice, it's kind of hard to tell just considering the angling and the draw distance, but I'm looking out there, and actually that is something I need to talk about, but I think I'll do that in another episode. But if you notice, directly above us are a bunch of those, like, spires and trees and stuff. So, yeah, we're just, you know, maybe 1,000 feet below the ground. Also, my frame rate really chunks when I do this. But it's kind of cool to take a look at the world outside of, you know, the dungeon, where nothing's supposed to be visible. Anyway, let's place a fire. I don't feel like going back. And you can actually place a fire, even if you don't have, like, even if it has weird collision issues, you'll usually either put it sideways or up in the air, and you can still use it if it's above you, which is kind of silly, but it's not the end of the world. Now, as I was saying, wood is super important, and this is why. A basic campfire requires 20 wood to build, and I believe it's actually 10 wood to build, and 10 wood to, you know, fill it up for fire. And you can upgrade campfires, but I have yet to actually run into... a reason to do so. It seems like a basic fire heals you for just about the same amount as as like a fully upgraded fire. Though, one thing to note, and since I'm a solo player, I don't get the benefit, if you have a bunch of other people surrounding the fire with you, you will all heal faster. So it's actually super beneficial to play with as many people as possible, which is really cool. Of course, the official party system is not built into the game yet, but what they do have is a... I'm about to get attacked. What they do have is a console command that you can put in that makes it so your like, kind of displayed friend code... Oh, that slime is gonna murder my fire. That's not appreciated. But you can set your, like, your friendly code to X amount, and I think it goes from, like, 1 to 999. And so if everybody sets their FOF code to the same thing, then everybody will be friendly to each other. I'm not sure if you can still hit friendly enemies. I don't think so. Or not friendly enemies, friendly players. Or at least as long as you have the same code. But I've yet to experience this because, again, I'm a largely solo player. Now, one other thing that I didn't mention, and this doesn't really go with dungeon leveling or loot, but I actually have the benefit of playing with a developer, to a small degree. He was helping me kill a boss monster yesterday, and I truly should have recorded it, but, oh well, my mistake. But if you notice in chat, every once in a while there will be a guy called BitMonster Mikey, and he's been an incredible source of information here. So, I think we can go without any more fire hijinks. So what I do want to point out is this guy. It kind of goes with dungeons, leveling, and loot, mostly on the loot side of things. So Element X, which built by harvesters. This one, see, I don't want to make them private, because the thing is, if you make them private, people blow them up. Whereas if they're public, people will just grab them, grab the resources from them, which is viable enough. But I think this is a dead end, actually. Yeah, it's a dead end. Okay, we'll have to figure out a different way to go from here, but that's not that big of a deal either. But, so that vend bot had 4 items called pets. Pets, which I actually have bought 2 at this point. I have the damage booster and the run speed booster. Let's buy the run speed booster. Pets give you small passive bonuses to your stats. So the damage booster gives me, I want to say like 25% damage boost, give or take, which is pretty substantial, especially when you're fighting like really tough enemies. Whereas the run speed boost is actually about a 25% boost to my speed, which is very welcome. So let's go back over here. And this is the harvester I put down earlier. This is how you get Element X. I think you get somewhere between 50 to 100 Element X per patch. And you don't... Okay, you both need a lot of Element X and not that much at all. So if you want to just get pets, you only need 150 per, which is like 3 nodes. It's barely anything. However, if you want to get passive skill boosts, which are pretty valuable, kind of depending on the passive skill boost, then you need 1,000 per level up. Unless, hold on. Oh, no. If you want to get past level 1, it requires 2,000, and then probably 3,000, 4,000, whatever. Which is really expensive by the time you get into it. I assume there's going to be better ways of harvesting more Element X, or maybe you can upgrade the harvester. That is something I haven't actually messed around with, so I'm gonna upgrade it once, see what happens. Let's wait for it to tick. Because if it only gives me 1... Yeah, it's only 1 tick, so I'm not entirely sure what the benefits of having a higher level harvester is, but I assume it's worthwhile somewhere along the way. Anyway, looks like we also have a number of other players running around, so I am going to be competing for resources, and they're probably going to be taking my resources from my harvester, but I don't really care, because if I were in an unpopulated cave, you know, not filled with other people, then... Let's see, it looks like they don't loot my harvesters, weirdly enough. I guess people are really polite in this game. But if I was in an unpopulated cave by myself, I'd have free range to hundreds of resources. It's ridiculous. So, I recognize that this dungeon may not be the best for showing off loot. So, let's quick cut to a different one. And cut to a dungeon that actually has like higher level enemies, so I can show off leveling as well. Because this is actually a really short dungeon. Shorter than the last time I was in here, for sure. Now, before I forget, I should actually mention, as far as dungeons go, they're actually fairly plentiful, and I'll show that off in a bit. But you can always find a dungeon via that bright kind of yellow-orange light that comes out of them. And I don't think it's going to be easy. Oh, you can kind of see it in the distance. It's very small, probably especially in the YouTube video. Let's see if I can zoom in at all. Got a pistol for this reason. It's kind of hard to tell, but right where I'm directly aiming, kind of next to the tip of the dragon's tooth that I'm next to, is a little yellow-orange light. That is another dungeon. Just another one right there, too. They're all over the place, and a lot of them are kind of within the 1 to 10 level range. So you don't have to worry about stumbling into a dungeon you can't do, but it is still a concern in a lot of cases. So don't go into a dungeon unprepared, and if you can, go into a dungeon with other people, because having extra friendly firepower is extraordinarily useful. Apart from that, yeah. Now, I did say I was going to mention that over there when I was looking through the ground. That's actually the other continent, and I am going to hold off on doing a video on that for at least a little bit longer, just because there's a lot of other stuff I would like to cover first. So, let's go find a different dungeon that hopefully has less people in it. Oh yeah, one other thing. I got kind of lucky here. Somebody had left a factory out in the middle of nowhere. So, I mentioned monocycle, and I'll probably do a video on vehicles later, especially once I find the jetpack blueprint, but these are the required materials to make a monocycle. You need 150 gems, 150 ore, 200 fossils, 500 wood, and 50 element X. That's not so bad, actually, because most of those can be just gathered out in the wild, and you don't have to worry about killing specific enemies for them. Whereas the wooden sword that I'm running around with, you actually have to kill, like, 4 slime bosses for, give or take. Kinda hard to tell, but, so there, is that a dungeon over there? I don't know, it's hard to tell. It's dark, and I've lost my bearings, but that's okay. Now, one thing I should mention before I find a dungeon, simply because I haven't found any, and this is kind of risky, and probably isn't going to last into future... there we go. Into future versions. However, currently you can climb these crazy dragon teeth looking things, though the hitbox on them drops off after a certain point, and then you fall through. So it's really risky doing so, and if you notice, we have 2 dungeons in sight. We have one really close to us, and then one a little bit farther away. So you can climb those, and they're actually really good for scouting. For the time being, though, unless you're in, like, really early beta within the first, like, couple of weeks of this game coming out, don't trust it. It might change, and don't blame me if you fall to your death, because I've already done that several times, using them to scout, which is fun, but destructive. Anyway, let's check out this dungeon, see if anybody's here. Let's see if it's the same dungeon that Yep, it is the... this is going to be a problem. Alright, so I have to show this off, just because. And then we're probably going to head over to that other dungeon. So, these are tech hunters. I don't think I've shown them in gameplay yet. Also, if you notice, there's a bunch of resources already. Now, tech hunters come in 2 varieties. There's the tough tech hunter, which... well, not tough. There's just the regular tech hunter, which is like these guys. They're small, they shoot stuff at you, and they're kind of a pain in the ass. I don't like fighting them, because unlike slimes and a lot of other enemies, they have a ranged attack, but the ranged attack does a fair amount of damage. And especially if you're dealing with delay, which I am, the like damage that you can sustain fighting a tech hunter is usually more than a standard player has, and you have to use like kind of wiggly movement to avoid fighting them in full. Now, I thought I was going to be able to show this off, but I guess he disappeared. But there are actually specific types of tech hunters. This is a pain. Wow, this lag has gotten crazy. But there's specific types of very large tech hunters that give you blueprints. And they actually have names above them, much like that slime boss that I showed earlier. They will give blueprints for various things. So when I first came in here, I got a bunch of blueprints for like basic structures and stuff. But as I went on, I got a bunch of blueprints for weapons and things. But the thing is, it's generally best to avoid fighting tech hunters unless you're ridiculously over-leveled in comparison to them. Because as far as like a time efficiency thing goes, it's much easier to fight slimes, especially if you don't have lag. But like as it stands, there we go. There's one. This is going to be a problem, but so this is Tough Bog Legumier. And we can already take out his little minion, which is convenient, and he's going to go down pretty fast, because if you notice, he's level 4. And it might be too small to see on the screen, but I'm actually level 9, which, and I've kind of been avoiding saying this specifically, but here's the secret to Grav, and combat in Grav. If you're a higher level than anything else, you're not guaranteed to win. No siree. However, he's only doing 4 damage to me. If I was fighting him at my level... Oh, this is going to be a problem. That, I believe, is also a boss bomb. Wow, our lag is going crazy atrocious. That's okay. I can still give a pretty good summation of what's going on. So, assuming we kill this guy and don't die, which would be pretty embarrassing, then we're going to get some nice items. I'm just going to use that health stem. Health stems are kind of hard to get. Yep, there we go. He died, and he did not actually give us any blueprints, which doesn't surprise me that much, considering I've gotten them all. It looks like different enemies have different types of blueprints, so the sword that I'm using, I actually got a regular sword blueprint from one of those bosses, and then I got a different sword blueprint from a ice slime. So if you want to get blueprints fast, go find some low-level tech hunters, and you'll get all the basic ones you need, and then you go back and fight some slimes. So let's go find a different cave and talk about leveling, because this cave is bad for leveling. Tech hunters in general are bad for leveling. Now, I found another dungeon. Doesn't really look like it because I'm not looking at it, because there's this thing, and I don't think I mentioned this in the previous video, but uplinks are super useful. Uplinks are where you respawn, and there's no time limit on them. Just every time you die, you respawn there, but you die with like half of the maximum health you died with previously. I don't know. It's not super penalizing, but at the same time, it's where the dungeon entrance was, like right here. Did I walk by it? No, I've already lost it. Yeah, there it is. Wow, how did I miss that? Wow, that is actually a really cramped dungeon entrance. I don't know if this is actually the same place I've been to. I remember where like half of the dungeons are, and not all of them though. But anyway, apart from the very basic early lag, let's get in here. And this is not a high enough level. Yeah, I thought so. This is not a high enough level for me to gain really any experience. I think any enemy that's like lower than X amount only gives you 10 EXP, so if you really want to, you can farm crazy amounts of experience from crazy amounts of monsters, but that's not really viable. It takes a very long time. Your best bet is to fight things that are either 2 levels lower than you to 2 levels higher than you, but it depends on the type of enemy. So when I say it depends on the type of enemy, I've shown pretty much 2 types in dungeons, and as far as I can tell, those are the only 2 types that spawn. They're either slimes or tech hunters, and those are the only ones I've ever seen in the dungeons. There are a bunch out in the, like, overworld, but no idea which ones of those are super viable, just because I haven't spent a whole lot of time farming out there. But as far as like leveling in a dungeon goes, if you don't collect all of the resources, alright, if you don't collect all of the resources, you can actually, let's see if I can do this. I don't think I have enough fossil, unfortunately. Yeah, I'm gonna run out of fossil before I can cross this properly. But, there might be some nodes in here. We'll see, because, like, this person hasn't cleared the entire place out particularly well. But, so, as you go through the dungeons, the monsters will get higher levels. So when we entered the dungeon, it was, like, levels 1 to 2. And we're up to, like, 3, and then on the other side of that, I think it might even get higher than that. So it's beneficial to kind of stick around. And if you don't get rid of the resources, enemies keep spawning. So if you want to just farm endless amounts of enemies, this is how you do it. Now, it looks like the one guy... Oh, hello. Apparently flying bugs do spawn in the caves. This is the first time I've ever seen one in there. But... And that must be the player. Well, let's see if I can run past him and gather some fossils, because we're going to need it. He's mostly left the ore on the walls, and that's not what we need. But one of the other things I kind of mentioned... Oh, he might actually be really high level. One of the other things that I kind of mentioned is tough. Some of the enemies in the previous area were tough. Yeah, this is a high-level dude. And each dungeon... Yeah, this is a level 11 dude. Wow. Each dungeon you go into has a different descriptor. So, in this case, it's infected. Which apparently doesn't apply to every enemy, but there are a lot of enemies that will pick it up. I'm not entirely sure why that one didn't. Wow, yeah, we're running into a lot of random enemies here. That's confusing. Now, here we go. Here's some loot. Unfortunately, there's another gap, so I'm not going to be able to cross it. Nuts. This is... I should have brought more bones with me. But if I can get over there, it's level 6, and then 7, 8, 9, whatever. It's just... no bones, this guy's taking it all. Let's go work on that for a second. Oh yeah, so I will admit, I died here coming back. The lag killed me. The lag killed me on the way through. And there's a bridge here. And I fell through the gap because the lag, when I jumped, I was riding on my bike, lag dropped me down the hole, essentially. But nice thing, it was kind of hard to tell there, but there was like a lens flare coming off of where my dead body is. And you can actually see that no matter where you are. Which is really convenient, actually. And people are accusing me of busting up their stuff, so I might as well mention that too. But, so, it's actually really convenient to find your corpse. Originally, I was afraid that, I'd never be able to find my stuff. But, the fact that there's that giant lens flare just sitting around, makes it really easy, especially if you're trying to find it on the overworld, which has very few discernible, like, well, discernible anythings. It's just trees aplenty. But, again, not really dungeons, leveling, or loot, but I mentioned harvesters, and you can make them public or not, so this one says locked, meaning I can't interact with it. I can't pick anything up from there, and it's not going to do me any good. But what I can do is I can break it. So if somebody built one of these and just left it there, then I could bust it up if I wanted to, and I don't think I get anything on the inside, but I can, say, build my own structure on top of it, and steal the resources that were used to make the structure. And I don't know if that counts upgraded structures too, but I don't really care either. I think I'm just going to leave this cave. There are already too many people in here. The problem is if you're playing at peak hours, just after launch, you're going to have a lot more people playing than, well, if you're playing at like a really odd hour. Freaking no bones. Those things are a problem. Now that is actually a boss, but it's very hard to kill the weird spider bombs, because it's just not feasible to kill them before they blow themselves up. Anyway, so you can destroy other players' structures. It's kind of frustrating, but it's not the end of the world if somebody does so, just because most structures are pretty cheap, but it's common decency not to do so. Now, there are a couple of nice things now. There's actually PvE servers, so if you don't want to do PvP in the slightest, that actually exists. I think you might still be able to destroy structures, but I haven't tested that one out too hard. But, that's actually really nice if you don't feel like daisying it up. And truly, if I had that choice from the beginning, I probably would have, just because I don't really want to tango with other people, especially because at some point, some high-level character, it is not letting me leave, there we go. Some high-level character is going to get it into their head that they can murder me. And, I mean, I'm a pretty high level too, so I can go toe-to-toe at the time being. But at some point, somebody's going to get up to like level 30, and will be able to one-shot any level 1, which is super concerning. I'm not sure how they're going to balance that out. Maybe if you can only PvP people within a certain range. Anyway, so I'm just going to go find some bone, but at the same time, I don't think I'm going to be able to find bone in a reasonable time frame. So I'll show off... Oh, you know what? I can just show off leveling here. Seeing as the world on the outside of a dungeon actually has some highish level monsters. So I'm level 9, so killing this guy is going to give me, what, probably 50 experience, give or take. And generally I don't fight... Okay, 39. Generally don't fight combusting firebugs, because problem with them, they actually shoot ranged attacks at you, and with the like current delay on the game and the like slight glitchiness to it, you can be directly behind them and they'll still shoot you, which shouldn't happen. But it's like detection of where you are is not the greatest, so you run into random issues like that. So I prefer to fight melee enemies that you can kind of strafe around, because, well, combat isn't super effective. Well, isn't super advanced at this point. Yeah, there's another dungeon. Let's see what it's good for. I need to get some bones, and I'm really hoping I can find a dungeon nobody's been in. So fighting enemies that are kind of within your level range are going to level you a lot faster. Now, if you can manage to somehow fight things that are way above your level, you're going to gain insane amounts of experience. I think you can get up to like 300-400 experience per thing that's a higher level than you. Problem being, if you're doing it and you're losing loads of hit points, yeah, there are health stims. I did use one of those earlier. The reason why you don't want to use those generally, they're very rare and hard to get. You need to get a specific rare resource to even make them. And I think you can generally get them from slimes, but you have to farm a lot of slimes just to get one. So it's generally best to save those, except for in dire circumstances. It's better to just retreat and regain your health. Because one of the nice things in dungeons, and I'm just going to talk off the cuff while I go to the other dungeon over here. I think nobody's been over to this one, maybe. I don't see any structures. But enemies in dungeons don't actually regain health. Also, there's Crystal. I didn't show it off during the impressions video. So, if you're savvy about it, you can actually kind of hit and run enemies and like go back and heal. And they'll be low health, and you'll be full health. Of course, if they're respawning, it doesn't matter. But if you take out all the resources in an area, you can, you know, potshot a guy to death instead of having to worry about going toe-to-toe with them. And generally, that's not a big deal. But if you're fighting like the big tech hunter bosses, you're probably going to need to do that kind of thing. Alright, so this is an untouched cave. It is only levels 1 to 3. Hopefully I won't have to build a bridge. Actually, I don't need ore. I could build some harvesters, but I don't really care. That's what I want to do. Get to the end here. Oh, balls. Well, here's a bunch of, you know, fossils, and these guys are punchy. So this is not a cave I would want to level in, but it does have fossils in it. So yeah, if you want basic resources, just go into a cave almost immediately. Chances are they're all most zones have like a starting area and a starting dungeon pretty close by. And if you can get in there when nobody else is in there, you're going to get loads of resources. If not, actually one of the nice things they did recently was they really boosted up the amount of resources just sitting around in the overworld. So if you need stuff to, you know, build your equipment, you're not totally screwed like I was yesterday when I was doing the first impressions video looking for ore. Because I've passed a fair amount of gems out on the overworld, and that never happened prior to this patch. And I'm kind of glad we were very insistent upon it in chat. Because there are only 6 developers for this game, and our server has one of them, which is nice. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it. I didn't properly show off leveling. I'd love to show off like actual leveling, like leveling up at some point. I'll probably do that in a later video, possibly when I'm playing with other people, because I really want to form a posse and run around. Because things are a lot easier when you have 2 people hitting an enemy. Double the damage and whatnot. You're a dick. But yeah, you don't want to fight tech hunters. They can and will kill you. If you can, find a slime dungeon and just level there. It doesn't even matter if it has resources, because the nice thing about slimes is they tend to drop health pickups. Not only the resources required for health, but, well, just, you know, flat out HP ups. The other nice thing about slimes is they generally don't have ranged attacks, and it's a lot easier for you to avoid their hits. And, they also drop crazy amounts of food for you. And food is actually super necessary if you're building harvesters, because if you're not paying attention, it costs you 20 food per harvester, and you kind of need those. Slimes also tend to drop stims. I just got 2 stims from a basic slime. So, speed stims look like this. They don't last very long, which is kind of unfortunate, but at the same time, they're pretty good regardless. I think I'm going to put up an uplink here and actually go farm the dungeon for a while, but I'm not going to show that on camera because farming a dungeon is kind of a slow and involved process, and I don't want to put my uplink on the top side of this dungeon. That would be silly. Anyway, this has been Dungeons, Leveling, and Loot with Wanderbot. So, if you like this video in any way, shape, or form, please leave me a like. It gets the word out there better and, you know, helps me out a bunch. If you want to ask any questions, if there's anything I failed to cover properly or kind of skipped over, feel free to ask in the comments down below. Or, if you want to see more Grav-related videos or Let's Plays, guides, whatever in general, feel free to subscribe because I do a lot of these. And as far as Grav goes, the next video I'm going to do is basic base construction. Because, well, it's about time I build a house somewhere, even though somebody's probably going to blow it up. Maybe. Well, see you next time. And as always, Thanks for watching.